Good afternoon, it's Ali from Merlin Mosaica here. There's been a lot of talk of late about the new running pliers from Techniglass called the Runner, and how they compare to the old favourites, the Silberschnitts. So I thought I'd just take them both through their paces this afternoon. Now, just before we do anything with them, their physical differences are the Runner is substantially longer. It's also heavier, and I will put the measurements and the weights up on the screen later. And also the distance between the throat and the cutting surface is greater on the Silberschnitts. So why is that important? What that means is that if you want to reach into a piece of glass with the Silberschnitts, you can reach further than you can with the Runner. So, and when you're cutting long curvy pieces and you want to get in from the side, that certainly is important. The Runner feels beautiful in the hand. It's beautifully balanced and obviously beautifully made, as all Techniglass products are. Silberschnitt have been around, well, for a long time. They are German made, German engineered, and a precision tool, and they feel beautiful in the hand too. Now, I might add, these are the older version. The newer version have a slightly different handle shape, but apart from that, the business end is exactly the same and they work exactly the same way. So, what I have here is a piece of mottle glass, and I'm just going to run a couple of score lines up there and see how they both go. And that's one, and this is the other. They might both work, and hopefully they will equally well. Whoops, I'm getting a bit wider than I wanted to. I might have to redo this because that's a bit fatter than I really wanted it to be. Now, the way these tools work is similar to an ordinary pair of running pliers. You have to look at, say, the frowny face. So the idea is that there's a button at the bottom which pushes up underneath the score line, and either side of the score line something pushes down. It's very noticeable in the Techniglass head, and it is adjustable, but the frowny part is very noticeable. On the Silberschnitts, it's actually, there we go, it's actually flat on the top, and there's a round circular pad on the bottom, which has a small button on it. Now, one of the things I've heard about the Silberschnitts is that it's hard to tell where to position them. That small button has to go under your score, and that small button is exactly in line with this hinge point or on the top. So if you line that up with your score line, you have no problem. I don't see the need to mark the tool. I make sure that the name is on the top and that is in line with my cut. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is position the Runner pointing up the score, and just give it a little click, and there she went beautifully. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the Silberschnitt. Now this is slightly longer because it was further down here, but I shouldn't imagine it's all that much different. And they work slightly differently. You actually squeeze lighter with the Silberschnitts, but there you go. I had a beautiful example of these two tools working on curved glass, but I didn't hit the record button. So now I'm going to just do some on straight glass because I'm churning through glass at a great rate of knots here. And it's a bit cooler today in Canberra, so things don't score, glass doesn't score quite as well when it's cooler. And I can't even score a straight line. I'm pretty dreadful when it comes to straight lines. Dreadful. Anywho, I'm trying, very trying. So I'll see now, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll just break this off at the center. That's not going to be a problem. And I'm going to break it off that way. That's not a problem. Now, with the runners, you need to have, when you're cutting a straight line, you just have this mark running up the handle, so it becomes an extension of the score line. And I just hold it there, and it's not clicking on that one. It's not making a break at all. The Silberschnitts, you run the score line, as I said earlier, so that it is an extension, it comes through this hole, but the bar you have to have running across it because it will push down on either side. So picking up the same piece and putting it in so that you can see the score line is running up through there. I'm just going to click and one break. Hi, now I do apologise, there is some background noise that I can't avoid. I saw recently somebody trying to cut some mosaic tiles with the runner, and you can also do that with the Silberschnitt, and I wager you can do it with just about any glass runner you have. But anyway, I'm going to show you the same thing. Now I have two different tiles here. I have a rough finish glass tile, which is a bit chunky, and I have a 2 centimetre square vitreous iridized tile, which is extremely hard to score, I might add. But I'm going to do the same thing with both tools, just to show you. So you can, certainly with this one, you just squeeze and it cuts beautifully. And with the vitreous tile, and I've cut it corner to corner, squeeze, and it cuts beautifully. So let's do the same thing with the Silberschnitt, shall we? Squeeze, cut, beautiful. Squeeze, cut, beautiful. So there you go. For one moment, if you just work in tiles, I don't recommend these tools for you. I think it's a bit of overkill. I think you'd be much better off with Lepinit runners. So just to prove the point, I have a pair of narrow runners here, and I'm just going to cut a tile with them. And yeah, so this is just a cheap pair of Lepinit springed runners, which I do like a lot, the small ones. They cut tiles every bit as well as the Silberschnitts and the runner. And finally, though I'm pretty certain both these tools will be able to do both of these things equally well, I have a piece of glass here. I have scored 2 semicircles out. They are the same size, and I'm going to attempt to break them out with both tools. So firstly the Silberschnitts, as I said, have the bar running across the score and the score running into that point. A little click. Little click, and there you go, away. And I'm sure that the runner will do this, should do this equally as easily. Little click, little click. No, it needs a bit more. Now you can always tell by the look at the back, and you can start to see the run has been run up to here and up to there. So it needs some in there. Now, remember earlier I talked about the depth of throat. This is where this might cause a problem, and I just thought of that. It's not going to reach all the way in there, but I can probably try and do it from the side a little. I'm going to try that. See whether that's sending the score. Yes, there you go. But that is an interesting point. If that wouldn't have broken that, whereas let's see whether the Silberschnitt would have. Let's see. Yes, the Silberschnitt would have got in there, no worries. So that's the difference between the size of throat between the two. So having a look at deep curves, thin cuts, tiles, etc. The two tools. And I must point out that I actually sell both tools, so I have a vested interest in both of them. I don't believe that either of these high-end tools are necessary if you're just working in tiles. These tools and their bigger brother are probably sufficient. However, if you're working in stained glass and you want to cut thin pieces or deep curves, I think the Silberschnitt are marginally better than the runner. That being said, they're both beautiful tools, and I would be happy in most instances to use either or. But if I want a deep cut or a thin cut, the Silberschnitts will be my go-to pliers. So I hope this has helped you. Enjoy these lovely tools.